Hello, Savannah. Welcome to our show.
Welcome to our show, Lee.
How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm just thinking about what I'm going to get into this summer.
What are you going to get into this summer?
That's what I'm trying to create, some sort of adventure.
Hmm.
So I'm going camping this weekend for a friend's birthday. It's my first time sleeping in a tent.
Really?
I don't know if I'm going to like it.
Well, I look forward to hearing that story.
Are you a camper?
No, I've camped a few times in my life, but no, I would not call myself a camper.
On the ground?
Yeah.
How did it feel?
I felt stiff when I got up each time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have recollections of being wet and recollections of being cold. Mm-hmm. And recollections of, as I said, of being very stiff when I get up in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, the only way to know is to try.
That's right.
And I'm just going to give it a
That's
whirl.
Right. I wish that I had learned to do that kind of stuff well when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But, it's okay.
Because there's a bougie form of it.
Yeah. But there's also just people who know how to do it well that's not bougie, but they invest in the equipment, but they develop certain skills and habituation around that make it very viable for them. And I never learned all that.
Yeah, I'm also completely skillless. Yeah. I have no idea.
Are you going with someone who knows what they're doing?
Yeah, it's for my friend's birthday, and she said that she knows that this is not my strong suit, and so she's going to bring me everything I need.
Oh, that's great.
So all I need to bring are clothes and water shoes.
Well, that's great.
And I'm going to give it a whirl.
I might do it more if I had people who would say, just come along.
So true. I know, the dream.
We'll have you a little mat, a thin mattress underneath your sleeping
Lee,
bag.
What are you doing this summer? Do you have anything planned?
Well, I'm entering into what I've decided is my third season of life. And I'm thinking...
How many are there?
Well,
4?
I'm suspecting there's 3 for me.
Lee, you're not that old.
Well, let me explain real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So I just, quit my job as a professor.
Yes.
27 years being a professor. And so one day I was walking at Percy Warner Park thinking about it, and I was doing my little gratitude list thing of 27 years. And then I started feeling a little kind of down in the mouth and negative, poor, pitiful me thinking, because I was thinking, I'm stepping away from this. It's been my identity for 27 years. I'm 59. Oh, Lee, you're a has-been. You have nothing else to contribute to the world. And so I was running down that route for a bit. And then I thought, wait a second, 27 years, my father is 27 years older than me, and he's had 27 really good years. And then I thought, wait a minute, it was 27 years from the time I started kindergarten to the time I finished my PhD. And then I started 27 years of being a professor. And so it's like, okay, this is my freshman year of my third season of life. Here we go.
I actually kind of love that.
So it changed my attitude completely, and I feel a lot more excited now. It's like, okay, what are you going to do with this third season of life?
You're in 27-year increments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What happens if you go longer than another 27?
Then it's just even more bonus.
Even more bonus on top.
Even more bonus on top.
You started teaching in 1999, right?
Correct.
With your current position. That's also kind of crazy that you started teaching in the 1900s. Isn't that
you young people.
Isn't that kind of funny?
I want to continue to note that if we older people said the kinds of things you young people say, we would never get away with it.
I think that's funny. It's kind of a flex, to be honest. It is.
Yeah.
You had a whole life going.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to someone who's been on No Small Endeavor before in Washington last week, and he just made a big change in his life, very prominent big change in his life. And we were talking about this stuff, and he said, I realized that, he said, I think I've got another 10 or 15 years of work in me. He started the current position that he left recently in 2003. And he said, I realized I didn't want to be doing in 2037 the same thing I was doing in 2003. And that was very helpful to me because I thought, I started in 1999. So I don't know that I want to be doing the same thing in 2037 I was doing in 1999. So that was another kind of nice encouragement of saying, okay, come on, get out there and explore, see what's next.
Isn't that so wild?
Yeah,
just a reframing all of a sudden sets you off on this different...
It sets you off in such a different way. So to look for the reframe is so important.
Well, Lee, I'm so happy for you and your third season of life. I want to read a couple of reviews.
Lay them on us.
If that's okay.
Yes.
So this one is from Britt Frank, and she said, "Hello. I'll start off by saying that I never write into shows with comments, negative or positive, but I just can't help but write to you both to say thank you so much for what you share. I truly look forward to each episode and love everything that you share. On the latest episode of the Subtext, you mentioned maybe doing another musical album review. Have you listened to the new Kevin Morby album? It's all I've been listening to lately, and it's beautiful. I feel this would be an excellent one to review. Thanks for everything you share." I don't even know who Kevin Morby is. Do you?
I do not, but maybe you should check that out and let us know.
Britt, I'll go on the hunt.
Yeah.
And I'll see what the vibes are.
Thank you, Britt.
Yeah, thank you so much for your review. And then another review came via text message. And sadly, I'm not going to show the picture, but a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, sent in a picture of herself crying at our Ask Us Everything episode. Because
what
she
moved
said it was
her
so
to
sweet.
tears?
The part where we talked about whether or not we had ever questioned our faith.
Oh.
It was a very sincere crying. And she just said that she really appreciated what we had to say, which I thought was great too.
Yes.
So thank you for that as well. That always means so much.
Yes.
Pictures of people crying is kind of my dream to show that we've really gotten to the heart, you know? On that note, let's start the show.
Hello, friends. Lee Seacamp here. There is, as you may have noticed, no shortage of content in the world. Opinions, endless, outrage, plentiful. Deep wisdom and thoughtful perspective, slightly harder to come by. That's part of why we created the NSC Notebook. It's our weekly email from the world of no small endeavor with reflections on a good life, behind-the-scenes insight into our interviews, and quotes that stuck with me long after those conversations ended. You'll also get a curated list of what I'm reading, watching, and listening to, books, movies, music, and other things I think are actually worth your time. It comes to your inbox every Tuesday, completely free. So if you'd like one less thing to doom scroll and one more thing to actually enjoy, sign up for the NSC Notebook at nosmallendeavor.com. Starting something new is hard and honestly can be terrifying. When we started No Small Endeavor, there were plenty of what ifs. What if no one listens? What if it doesn't work? But sometimes the thing worth doing is precisely the thing that requires you to take a leap. And if you're starting a business, Shopify helps make that leap a little less daunting. Shopify, the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. And you can also get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you with email and social media campaigns. If you get stuck, Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. It's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/NSC. Go to shopify.com/NSC. That's shopify.com/NSE.
Hi, friends. It's Annie F. Downs here, and I am so beyond excited to share with you that I have a brand new TV show called I Gotta Ask that begins airing Thursday, May 28th on The Wonder Project, which you can find through your Amazon Prime Video app. You may have heard of The Wonder Project because they're the ones who brought you The House of David, and I am so honored and honestly have zero chill that I get to partner with them to make this dream come true. I love how Wonder Project is not only creating great original TV and movies that audiences can experience together, but also curating content via their subscription on Prime Video filled with meaningful stories. The first 2 episodes of my talk show, I Gotta Ask, premiere on May 28th, followed by 2 episodes each on June 4th and June 11th. In every episode, I sit down with a group of friends, some experts in their fields and some thought leaders, some just my real life people. And we talk about things like, why is dating so hard in 2026? Or how do I build a business? What do I do with fear and anxiety? And so many more questions that I just had to ask. I cannot wait to hear what you think. You can subscribe today at igottaask.com.
Welcome to the Subtext, where we go beneath the headlines and beyond the obvious. I'm Savannah Locke.
I am Lee Seacamp.
Hey, if you like the show, here's your permission to goss us up. Follow, rate, and drop a review wherever you're listening now. Send pictures of yourself crying, and we'll post it on social media.
Or laughing.
Exactly. Or laughing.
Yes.
Or angry.
Or
any emotion we will take. You can watch full episodes on YouTube and Spotify and stay connected to us on Instagram at The Subtext Show, Savannah_Locke, and Lee C. Camp. If you have any kind of hot takes, just send them our way in the DMs. All right, Lee. You are actually kind of the meat of this episode.
am I?
It is a book that you are reading.
Yes. That I mentioned in the last episode.
You mentioned it in the last episode, and we were texting a little bit when you were in DC,
Mm-hmm.
and you said you were reading this book, and I thought, this is fascinating.
Mm.
So your book is on nuclear war.
Yes, Annie Jacobsen. The book is entitled Nuclear War, subtitled A Scenario.
Which we always love a clear
Yes.
title.
Yes.
Yeah, disturbing, but clear.
Yes.
And the reason I thought that it might be an interesting topic is because in my world, I'm very excited because the show Paradise just got renewed for season 3, and it's officially in production.
And I know just a touch about Paradise, but for other people who don't know anything about it, give us the premise.
Everyone should go watch this show,
Yeah.
including you, Lacey
Okay.
Camp. You will love it.
Okay.
So Paradise basically starts, and this will contain no spoilers. Well, that's not true. It will contain the first episode spoilers, but life moves on. Paradise starts with basically this catastrophic global event. So it's not nuclear war, but it's akin to it.
Okay.
And it triggers a failsafe from the United States government, which is an underground bunker that was built to look and feel like a very idyllic American town. And it is underneath these mountains in Colorado. And it was designed to keep a select group of people alive while everyone else on the surface was left to die. So this place is paradise. And so it basically tracks the president of the United States and then a bunch of other wealthy people, but then a bunch of other chosen people who try to survive in this underground paradise bunker while no one knows what's happening above the surface.
Very interesting.
It feels very in line with the idea of a nuclear war.
Well, it's obviously, you know about Raven Rock.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's like Raven Rock Site R, I think they call it, that the president and other people can go to
Would go to
in the
should
event of a
something
nuclear
happen.
war.
Yeah.
And The Truman Show. I bet you don't know The Truman Show, do
I
you?
have watched The Truman Show
Have you?
before with
Yeah.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's kind of like The Truman Show meets Raven Rock, sounds like,
Mhm.
in Colorado.
So talk me through, for anyone who doesn't know what Raven Rock is, what is that? And then I want to talk about what that says about our culture and everything. And then I want to talk about what you're learning about with your book.
Well, I don't know a huge amount about Raven Rock, except that it's a facility within, a helicopter ride of the White House, where key leaders in the U.S. government could be evacuated to in the event of a nuclear attack, so that there could be continuation of the U.S. government, and there as well could have communication with the doomsday plane and the other kind of nuclear command centers, of which there are several in the U.S., so that whoever remains the president or at the top of the line, gets sworn in if the president gets killed, can send down their commands about further nuclear attacks and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Disturbing,
yes.
Disturbing to think about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about, is that in your book?
It gets alluded to, yes. Yeah, and talked about some. Yep.
Okay, so I read a ton of reviews about your book.
Okay.
Because I was not familiar with it at all. What I know about it is that it's like a fictional, it's based in a lot of interviews, etc., but it's like a fictional telling of what might happen should a nuclear war occur. Is that true?
Right. It's a highly researched, meticulously researched account of a fictional scenario of what it would look like should a nuclear holocaust be unleashed upon the planet.
In this scenario, like North Korea is the one that...
In this scenario, North Korea starts it, the U.S. retaliates, the Russians think, plausibly so, that the missiles are coming at them. They retaliate, and then it's a nuclear holocaust. And what's so remarkable about the book is that she sketches it out over like 3 24-minute periods. And so the whole book, the last 10, 15 pages of the book is about 24 months later, but the great bulk of the book is about those 3 24-minute periods. And you can see the way in which we really are literally sitting on this spot of where, like today, the world could end as we know it. and because it would happen in 72 minutes if it were to happen. And so it's terrifying, and it shows how utterly irrational and crazy we are with what we have done in the creation of the nuclear world that we are in. And it's just, it's outrageous. And you know, the horrors of what would be unfolded that is part of American, Russian nuclear policy is just incredibly impossible to fathom, and yet it's policy.
For you, when you say policy, are you talking about current policy, or are you talking about the fact that this even exists?
Kind of both of the above.
Okay.
You know, in terms of, you know, the so-called mutually assured deterrence.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
The acronym MAD, right? It is MAD because the idea is that if you shoot at us, we're going to shoot at you, and everything will go down in an utter apocalyptic nuclear end. And so, and moreover, there's these kind of systems by which these missiles can be fired very, very rapidly. And so, you know, if one comes, you know, within, I don't know I forget now the timeline, but within minutes, the U.S. could be sending back a volley of nuclear missiles. Russia could be minutes from that. They could be sending out, you know, hundreds of missiles, and then the U.S. sends all of their missiles back at Russia. And then it's just, you know, outlandish. But you're talking about immense amounts of policy that's been developed that this is what we're going to do. If it starts, it starts, and this is what we're going to do. And it's all going to go down in this utter blaze, apocalyptic blaze. And it's hard to imagine that's where we are.
So is the official policy that if you do this, we definitely do that? There's not one of restraint that exists?
According to her telling, there is no possibility of restraint. That the whole thing is built on deterrence. The whole notion of deterrence is built upon, if you shoot, we're going to shoot.
We'll shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard it mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was deterrence.
No, it is mutually assured destruction.
Oh, okay.
But the idea of deterrence is that if deterrence doesn't hold, then it is mutually assured destruction.
Okay. So do other countries in the world also have that sort of policy, or is it just the United States and Russia?
I do not know.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting to think through, because I would be curious if other countries in the world have taken their note from us and just basically everyone followed suit, or are there some people who have decided to say, we're not going to shoot even if you do shoot us? Yeah, that's disturbing. Okay, so tell me some other takeaways that you have from this book. Does it scare you? Like, I will never read this book, ever. Like, it would not be good for my mental health. Does it scare you reading through it?
It doesn't. Well, I mean, it's scary at one level, and I guess at another level, it doesn't scare me. I think what it does is it sobers me. And it paints such a graphic picture of what we humans have developed over the last, 45 to now, or 1946 to now would be 80 years. Over the last 80 years, what we've developed is mind-boggling. And we've spent trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars developing something that is mind-boggling. And even just the notion of, you know, it's not just who's going to get killed with the first blast of the bombs. You know, the so-called Ring 1, you know, if you're within a certain number of miles of an epicenter of a 1 megaton bomb or whatever, you know, they know how many people are going to get killed and how far out the fireball's going to go. But then once that happens, then there's the atmospheric changes, because the firebomb goes up in the so-called mushroom cloud, and it creates atmospheric conditions, so that basically what you have is a hurricane winds that are now getting, after they first blown out everything from Ring 1 and Ring 2 and just flattened everything for miles and miles and miles around. Then as the fireball goes up, then it creates all this suction and fire, and there's just torrential firestorms that will then burn and burn and burn. So then lots of people are just going to get burned alive. And then the people who survive through that Ring 1 and Ring 2 stuff, then they're going to have to deal with radiation poisoning. And, the accounts of radiation poisoning, and they now know what it does. There was a guy that was a nuclear scientist, and he accidentally dropped, or somebody in the lab dropped some thing of plutonium or something, and he jumped in front of it to protect other people from it. And so he was like the first studied, as far as I know, the first studied episode of what radiation poisoning does to you. And what it does to you is, in effect, as I understand it, it basically turns you inside. It reduces all of the cellular layers of your organs. And so you just become a mush of, mush inside, and it's a horrific way to die. So then there's going to be people that die of that. And then beyond that, there's the so-called nuclear winter. And the nuclear winter is then going to bring about, sub-zero temperatures for lots of parts of the world, devastation of crops, poisoning of water. And so Khrushchev, one of the premiers of Russia, said, who was their premier in the 60s, and he and Kennedy both wanted to try to reduce the odds of nuclear war. But Khrushchev at one point said that after the attacks, the living, those who survived, would envy the dead because it's going to be so horrible. And so I think just the extent of the horror of it and the fact that we talk about it so little is shocking, I think. And it's like life is on its razor's edge, and we just don't talk about it, and we don't demand or expect of our leaders to do something to minimize these risks. And instead, if anything, they just act like, well, it'll be fine. And it's like, why do we act this way? Can't you people do something? You people who have some power about this stuff, can't you do something to minimize some of these risks and not put the nuclear clock quite so close to midnight and back it off at least a little? Do something about it.
Yeah, it does show a lack of integrity or concern in a very disturbing way. Okay, so let's talk about your text message to me where you talked about the razor's edge, how life is always kind of I think you literally said life is always at a razor's edge or something like that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something from Paradise, actually, where in that initial global catastrophe scene and the president is on the plane headed towards the underground bunker, a lot of his staff were telling him, you should launch nuclear weapons because they didn't know what was happening and if they were being attacked or whatever. But instead, in the football thing, there was actually an additional failsafe where he was able to click a separate button that killed all of the electricity in the world, which ensured not only that they would not launch nuclear weapons, but that no one else could either. And I feel like that's a very beautiful potential option. If that's there, I would prefer that one to the non-launching of nuclear weapons.
Well, it does sound like it might be.
Nice.
But at least in Annie Jacobsen's telling, if, say, North Korea, which there's fear that North Korea has a satellite that's orbiting that might have a small nuclear weapon in it, and if they set that off up in the atmosphere 200 or 300 miles above the United States, it would knock out all the electricity in the United States. And according to some of the research that she did, if all of the electricity got knocked out in the United States, somewhere around 90% of the population would be dead before not too long of a time. Because if you don't have electricity, you don't have fuel, you don't have food,
heat, air
you
conditioning,
don't have heat, you don't have air conditioning, and just everything goes to hell. And so it's just another form of mass destruction and mass killing by another method.
I feel preferential to the alternative. If you have to choose a nuclear weapon or getting rid of electricity, I think I'd rather go without electricity.
Yeah, I'll leave that.
I don't know. You're like neither is good.
And neither is good.
I was only thinking of the positives of not letting these warheads be sent.
Yeah.
But yes, we do need electricity to live.
Yes.
We need the grid.
These days, we need the grid.
We don't have the solar.
Those of us in Nashville who went without the grid for 7 or 8 days in Winter Storm Fern learned about
Lee,
how you need a grid.
I have never gone to a hotel so fast in my life that somehow was connected to some sort of electricity.
Hey friends, one of the things we've learned from listeners is that many of you don't want to just listen to these conversations. You'd like to go deeper than that. That's part of why we created NSC Plus, which is our subscriber community, where we share additional conversations, reflections, and bonus material connected to the themes of the show, especially looking for ways that this can relate to the practice of your own life. Recently, we started a new series called Reflections on a Good Life, in which I share brief reflections arising from some of our favorite NSC interviews. You might think of it as a weekly 7-minute episode in which I pull out some pearl of wisdom from an interview and suggest a question on which you might choose to meditate to further cultivate some goodness in your own life. We've also launched a new bonus series called Books You Should Know. In the first installment, I sat down with Dr. Lee Warren for a conversation that quickly became one of my favorite interviews I've done in quite a while. It's all waiting for you over at NSC Plus. And just as importantly, NSC Plus is what helps keep No Small Endeavor on the air and available for free to everyone. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and if these conversations have been meaningful to you, we would truly love to have you join us. You can learn more at nosmallendeavor.com or click the link in the show notes and join NSC Plus.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup meal at McDonald's is underway with one of 9 legendary cups in the lineup. Christian Pulisic, David Beckham, Lamine Yamal, Ronaldinho, Thierry Henry, Son Heung-min, Alphonso Davies, Santi Jimenez. And between the posts, it's Grimace. Get one of 9 collectible cups with a FIFA World Cup meal.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time while supplies last. All rights reserved. 2026 McDonald's at FIFA World Cup 2026.
This episode is brought to you by Prime. What if you had one more chance with the one that got away?
Sam, you came home.
Based on the best-selling novel from Carly Fortune. Every Year After follows childhood friends Sam and Percy as they reunite in the dreamy, nostalgic lakeside town of Barry's Bay.
Love can be hard to find. So if you're lucky enough to find that person, never let go.
A second chance at first love. Every Year After, now streaming only on Prime.
Yeah, super, super fascinating. So something that you had talked about in a text message to me was basically how this book is showing you that we're always like that close to destruction, and not just from nuclear weapons, but anything could go wrong and all that. Which leads me to the bigger question after the very visceral image that you just painted, which is how should Christians, or how can Christians cope with the reality of existential doom?
Well, I would say first, one way I would not want Christians to cope with existential dread would be, God's got this. That kind of stuff drives me crazy.
Nice, yeah.
And it's like, what the heck does that mean? Mm-hmm. Right? Because when I hear that kind of talk, it means, everything's fine. I don't have to do anything, or we don't have to think about anything. Then whatever God's going to do is God's going to do. Mm-hmm. Overlooking the fact that clearly if you take the story of Scripture seriously, or you take human history seriously, mm-hmm. then God lets us screw ourselves over quite often, mm-hmm. right? And so then the question becomes, don't act as if this is all on God. Mm-hmm. It's on us. Mm-hmm. And so let us figure out what we ought to be doing, mm-hmm. Now, then one can say, well, I can't do anything about nuclear weapons. Mm-hmm. And that's, for most of us, that's likely quite true, mm-hmm. that we can't. Mm-hmm. And so then the question becomes, okay, well, what then, right? Well, there are, first of all, maybe we shouldn't underestimate what we can do, right? I mean, one of the reasons that I thought about having this conversation on this is I know that there are at least a few people that I know in Washington, D.C. who listen to this show. Mm-hmm. And maybe they can say something,
Hello?
Right? I know some people that some really prominent universities. Maybe they can say something. Mm-hmm. And so maybe just by imagining some other possibility, mm-hmm. we can begin to sow the seeds of another possibility. Mm-hmm. But if we just stick our head in the sand, then there's no way that we're going to sow any seeds of some new possibility, right? And so to begin to imagine some sort of new world. And I think I was reminded of this in recently doing an interview with Allison Russell from No Small Endeavor, and she kept several times in that interview, she said something to the effect of, we can imagine something different.
Yeah.
And we can help affect something different. Mm-hmm. But if you never imagine that you can affect something different, then you're not going to, mm-hmm. right? And so let us imagine new possibilities in whatever the dramatic possible threat is to human existence or to social justice or whatever the case may be. But you got to begin somewhere, all right, to imagine new sorts of things. And so that's one of the things that we can do, is to begin to say, how can we sow the seeds of some new possibility in the world? And that's going to require us not to close our eyes and stick our head in the sand.
Yeah. And I think there also is some value in kind of bringing an awareness to the reality that this is our reality right now. So like, I think a lot of people go throughout their days, probably in a good way, which I want to talk about later, of like not thinking about the reality that we could all die from a nuclear holocaust today, right? So I don't know that needs to be at the top of everyone's mind all the time.
Right, I agree.
But I do think that there's a sense in which we have all grown comfortable with the current solution of mutually assured destruction. And is that really the best we can do? I think that that's more the question that I'm asking is, okay, we have obviously decided that this is the road we were going to take. But now that we're all in this, is this really working?
Yeah.
Like, is this really the best solution that everyone kind of keeps on stockpiling their nuclear weapons in order to show that if you do something, I'll do something back?
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like it's the best solution possible.
Yeah. No, I agree. Is how can we keep imagining some other sort of possibility? Again, there's the issue that, again, most of us aren't going to have any sort of circle of influence where we can do anything about that.
Right.
But at a minimum, maybe the fact that we're sitting on these hair triggers where by 5 o'clock this afternoon, the world could be done as we know it. Does that at least give us some perspective about some of the idiotic things we're spending our political capital on, rather than thinking, oh, what about the 5 billion people that could be dead by this afternoon, right? So it can at least minimize the trivialities and the idiocy that fills up so much of our time of thinking about politics.
Yes. I love that. I want to talk about a couple of examples of maybe some ways that people are coping or thinking through this. So the first one is with Peter Thiel. Do you know Peter Thiel?
Yeah.
Okay. So billionaire, sponsored this current administration, big fan of JD Vance. Tech bro, Palantir, etc. Okay. Peter Thiel it was just reported that he moved his family to Argentina. And in these reports, people are saying that he is weighing Argentina as a potential, quote, plan B, amid concerns ranging from high taxes to nuclear war and artificial intelligence, which I think is very interesting coming from him because he has helped with all of those things. And this isn't new behavior for Thiel. So Thiel obtained a New Zealand citizenship in 2011 and applied for a Malta passport in 2022. So Argentina is the latest on what one outlet, I think maybe the New York Times, called his bunker map, which was fascinating. So I just want to also name that, like, amid these real existential realities, I wanted to name too that certain people are going to be able to protect themselves more than others.
Yes.
And that's unfair.
Yes.
And that's how that feels to me.
Is unfair as good as you got there?
That is the most chill way that I can say that. Particularly because Peter Thiel has essentially mined the U.S. economy for all of his money. That is where he's gotten all his money from.
What some report I read said something like, I don't know, you'll have to fact check us on this, but $670 million worth of contracts from the U.S. government just in Q1 of 2026.
So much money.
Yeah.
And Palantir is not necessarily a moral organization. And the fact that I think what feels unfair to me or frustrating to me is that he is basically contributing to the existential threats while wanting to mitigate the risk for himself and his family. And that feels frustrating to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that you can have people who have helped construct all of these horrors, and because they're people of power and people of wealth, they can escape while all the rest of us
get stuck
and fry. Right.
And I know that, like, I am always like raging against the billionaires, but this is an example of why. Because he's preparing for a potential collapse that he has caused. And he is trying to escape it. And I think that feels
maybe
very
you don't want to say
frustrating.
caused, but
That
seemingly
he has contributed
seemingly
to.
contributed to. Yes.
Once again, I'm the bowling ball, you are the bumpers. Just keep on being the bumpers for me. Yeah. And so I think that also is interesting because they've talked about this with Mark Zuckerberg, with Jeff Bezos, that they have created these bunkers in the global south, which apparently, I don't know if Annie Jacobsen talks about this in her book.
No.
But in the global south, where they think that it's basically less likely for them to experience certain ramifications from a nuclear war.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Australia, New Zealand would be a good place to be after a nuclear war.
Yeah.
And the northern hemisphere is going to be really devastated, but southern hemisphere is going to be a little better off.
Yeah. So how does that hit you with that way of potentially dealing with this existential reality?
I mean, it's not surprising, is it? I mean, this is the way history is that the people with wealth and power, a lot of the people with wealth and power fortify themselves behind walls and in their castles of whatever stripe, and let the other people deal with stuff that they are not going to have to deal with because they're fortified behind their castle walls.
Yeah. Frustrating. Another way that people deal with it, Eric Hagerman. Ezra Klein did an interview, not with him, but about him. I was curious if you had ever heard of him before. The New York Times dubbed him the most ignorant man in America. And they mean ignorant literally, like where he just doesn't know. So in 2018, there was a piece that profiled Eric Hagerman, who after the 2016 election made a decision to stop consuming the news entirely. So he built a life on his farm in Ohio and basically keeps the entire world outside of that, meaning all he'll watch are Cleveland Cavaliers games. And then sometimes he will read art reviews. But other than that, he has a zero news policy. So he calls it the blockade, where his friends and his family know that they can't talk to him about current events. And when he is in coffee shops, so he goes to this one coffee shop, I guess 30 minutes away from where he lives every morning, he listens to white noise in his ears so that he can't even hear the conversations of other people around him. So what I was curious about when I read that story is Eric Hagerman and Peter Thiel kind of doing the same thing by insulating themselves from a world that they find overwhelming or threatening?
Yeah. And you suspect the answer to that is yes.
No, I'm more charitable to Eric Hagerman, but I am curious if there is any sort of similarity.
Well, the similarity being that they're both somehow insulating themselves, fortifying themselves against that which is threatening to them.
Yeah.
Right. And for both, it is at one level, a matter of some privilege, I suppose. Though I would argue with myself of saying, well, maybe not, because Mr. Hagerman, he's claiming a privilege that anybody and everybody could claim, with regard to nuclear war. I mean, that's more complicated with regard to other sort of pressing social and political issues, right? Because I think a lot of people could choose willful ignorance to keep themselves insulated from difficult social realities that would explicitly be a form of privilege, because you can exempt yourself from the discomfort of knowing things that some of your neighbors or some of your fellow citizens, because they have different skin color or different economic class, are having to deal with that you don't have to deal with. And so you can just shut that kind of stuff out and get in your own kind of relative bunker, your relative plan B, to ignore all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So it is layered with different kind of sets of considerations. But with regard, so that's why I would be a little reticent about shutting out all news, is that to what degree are you shutting yourself off from, maybe there's some of your neighbors who need you to know certain things so that you can speak up on their behalf or contribute to some sort of different sort of way in your community. So could that be a form of privilege? Yeah, I think it perhaps could be. And at the same time, I've certainly gone through, this year, I stopped reading The Economist, because I just thought, I can't do anything about most of this stuff. I'm overwhelmed with this stuff. I'll try to deal with the stuff that I think I can work on, say something about, and study up what I need to study up to say something worth listening to on podcasts or whatever. But there's so much coming at us, it is easy to become completely overwhelmed. And so I do think that we have to make some choices in the mass media world in which we find ourselves as to how much we're going to let in and how much we're going to try to expose ourselves to, because you can quickly become emotionally debilitated and then you're not of use to anybody.
Yeah. And that's where I think that the tension is for me with Eric Hagerman's story is part of me wants to be really critical because there is a form of escapism there that I see. And the other part of me wonders if he's just doing what everyone was doing before 100 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like before we had all of this access, this is what people did. Like you knew about what was happening in your communities, and that's kind of all that you knew. I'm reading this book, Meditation for Mortals, which I want to read an excerpt from in a second. But in another part of the book, he talks about how as he's dealt with his engagement with the news, he has realized that in himself and in others that it became toxic whenever the news cycle became more real than your own real life.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, he was like, why do these news stories feel more real to me than what's actually happening in my day-to-day life? And that was for him the barometer where he was like, I'm out and I have to like readjust the way that I engage with the news, which I actually felt like was a pretty good framework.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
It seems so. I don't know exactly what he might mean by how you practice that. But yes, in theory, that seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I think he was just talking more about like not over-consuming news stuff. But this is something that I wanted to read from this Meditation for Mortals thing. I think you're going to think it's funny.
By Oliver Burkeman. You
By
haven't mentioned
Oliver.
Oliver's name yet.
Who I have just decided that I love.
Yeah.
His writing style is amazing. Lots of good wisdom, very succinct. So this is called You Can't Care About Everything on Staying Sane When the World's a Mess, which feels very relevant to today's topic.
Sure.
There are some French words in here, so I'm just going to not say them.
Oui, oui.
And just, and I'm just going to summarize some of this. Okay. In his memoirs, the late French philosopher Raymond Aron, is that his name?
I don't know.
He recounts a story in which he's strolling through Paris with his wife Suzanne and their newborn daughter one glorious morning in the 1930s. It's easy to picture the scene. The whole city soaking up the sun, making conversations in the shade of the trees, or drinking coffee and smoking at pavement bistro tables. Well, almost the whole city. In the city center, Aron spots his friend and fellow graduate from school, Simone Weil, seemingly convulsed with grief. The Arons ask, "What's wrong?" There is a strike in Shanghai, Weil responds, eyes brimming with tears, and troops fired on the workers. Weil, as the scholar, Alain Soupeau, we're going to go with it, explains, was one of those people who never managed to abstract themselves from the torrent of suffering in which humanity finds itself engulfed. It's not for me to say that Weil was wrong to feel such distress about a horror unfolding thousands of miles away, to which she had no personal connection. Some level of concern for the suffering of distant others is plainly laudable, and to many of her admirers today, the Jewish Catholic Marxist mystic is regarded as a saint. But I'm on safer ground asserting that most of us, including me, would be entirely unable to function were we to experience the emotional impact of every killing or act of injustice around the world, as if it had befallen a loved one. How does that hit you?
I've thought about that, and I have lived with a lot of that a lot. One can't take on the weight of the world. I mean, it's almost kind of like literally impossible, because you don't have time to read all the news about all the bad stuff in the world every day. And so we do have to have a filter. And then the question in my mind becomes, okay, what kind of filter are you selecting and why, and toward what end? What kind of person am I becoming by the filter or filters that I choose? That seems to me to be the right question. And I want to try to be a person who is compassionate and can attend to the people in front of me and the people in my community, and to whatever degree I can make a difference, farther away from here, then let me try to do that. But I can't do a lot about a lot of those things. And so and I'm not saying this about Simone Weil, but I have certainly seen instances where that kind of hyper concern with all injustices, close and far, can become a form of moralistic indulgence, I think.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, and so it can be it can be a serious vice, and so trying to navigate all those concerns, I think, is a tricky thing.
When I read that, I laughed, first of all, because it was painting this perfect picture of Paris, and it was like, well, for everyone except Simone.
Weil.
When I read that, I really wish for an impossible scenario, which is that we could ask Simone if she could do it over again, if that's the route that she would take. Because in her writing, it is very serious and very socially concerned. And I've read lots of her stuff. There's like a dark, depressed element to it. But then also there was this earnestness around a concern for people who are not herself. But I just wonder with like hindsight or perspective if that is something that she would have changed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the things that I have wondered about a lot of times is that, I and my family have never had to face political oppression, have never been unjustly prisoned, have never faced starvation, have never faced war in our neighborhoods. We've had some hardships, and some of which have been really heavy. But we haven't faced all that other kind of stuff. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that when I look at a lot of people who have been in those kinds of contexts, it seems the ones that are most compelling to me keep insisting that they must find some way to keep hope alive. And that means paying attention to the fact that even in the midst of all this craziness, there's still some sort of sliver of light. There's still some sort of possibility of laughter. There's still some sort of possibility of what's beautiful. And I'm even frightened. I'm not frightened. I'm concerned even to say that because, again, I don't know what it's like to be in those kinds of political oppression, and I don't want to say something that would be offensive to someone who has been through that kind of stuff. But even if you look at somebody like Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, who here he is writing about his experience in concentration camps, right? He insists that at our darkest, most difficult moments, our last freedom is to choose how we are going to frame it in our minds and how we are going to experience it, and to look for some possibility of hope, or to look for some possibility of meaning, or to look for some sort of possibility that one can become the kind of person, even in the darkest of the darkest moments, that you can respect in yourself, right? And so I find that kind of witness of people like Viktor Frankl very moving. And so if people in the darkest of the darkest are finding some sort of sliver of joy or some sort of sliver of delight, then that's an invitation to me to make sure that I don't overindulge my concern with oppression so that I lose sight of the possibility of delight and I lose sight of the possibility of joy here in my context when I'm not even having to deal with all that kind of stuff, right? And so, yes, we must be concerned. Yes, we should pay attention. Yes, we should know something about the fact that we're living on a razor's edge, and to whatever degree we can, if we can make any kind of serious contribution to those things, then heck, yes, we ought to be getting on with it, right? But the task is not to find ourselves in some sort of constant obsession with the darkness, but instead to find some sort of way to bear witness to the light wherever we may be.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Lee.
Thank you.
We'll end on that blessing. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds like a good place to end.
Nice, thanks.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business, From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.